around you, and you can't help but feel that something's amiss around you. And a lot of this and a lot of this was precipitated by, I think, the arrival of the Modi government in 2014. And almost immediately we saw a wave of hate, we saw lynchings happening, we saw an immense amount of turmoil, which we weren't privy to, which we didn't have an idea would get so bad. And at that point, I could sense a certain anger and a certain division that was kind of dividing India asunder. And of course, I had a lot to say about this, and I'd begun to see manifestations of that hatred around me in various pockets. And then, uh, combined with this, was also this urge to write, you know, to make a film in black and white about color, and to tell it from the point of view of the children, because after all of us are basically custodians of this planet for the next generation. And of course, I mean, this man also worries me a hell of a lot. And yeah, so I wanted to do something. I wanted to say a whole lot of things, and I think one day I started writing, and then it just grew. It became I started writing a short film. It grew. It became a longer format thing, and then I decided I wouldn't go to any producer, because I don't think anyone was going to, I didn't believe anyone would put money behind a film like this. So I used all my savings, and I made the film. Luckily for me, people like Gaurav, Vasuki, Rashmi, and some of my closest friends got involved, and it couldn't have happened without all of them, and without their belief, and without them resonating with what I was saying or feeling. So it was a bunch of really like-minded people uh, who got each other, who sensed the other person's heart, and it all came together. And of course, I mean, we fell on our faces a few times along the way, but it just kind of we were able to put this together and then put it out. But even at that point, I didn't imagine that it would get as bad as it is now. You know, and if you've read *Sapiens* by Yuval Harari, you you know, a few of us have always, of course, suspected that all of this is fiction. Religion and community and caste, and all of this is fiction. It's been created by human beings. Uh, but today, I mean, that fiction is being used as a weapon against the disenfranchised. And obviously, all of you are watching the kind of humanitarian crisis that's unfolding in India right now. So I don't know. Even I feel that, even as an idealist, if I'd hoped that the film would really change hearts and minds around the place, it's just a few and far in between. And
Yeah.
today, I think a lot more needs to be done.
I was thinking this is a really powerful film, and maybe it's a film that every child in school should watch as well. We've got to start early in terms of how we think about this. Anita Rathuri has a question for you, Patty, and then after that I'll go to Dhruva. So Amit, if you could let Anita ask the question.
Hi, Patty.
Hi.
I'm from Lucknow, and so I'm from UP. So I know the caste divides, the religion divides that were very evident there. But at the same time, when we lived there, it didn't make a difference that your neighbor was Muslim. I mean, half the city was Muslim. It didn't make a difference that people were Muslim or Christian or whatever. And so then we move away. We come to the U.S. and every time we go back, we see the modernization. We see a lot of changes, but you kind of think things are getting better. At least economically, things seem to be getting better. You could get toilet paper. I mean, there was bottled water and stuff like that, which, as sort of second gen, as the sort of Americans, we kind of liked. But things seem to be getting better. And then, as you said, in the last couple of years, it just seems that it isn't getting better. And things that you knew were there under the surface have been coming up in. And so my question was this, and you kind of answered part of it. was that, and it gets pretty violent and very virulent. And I mean, so do you think that this kind of a movie, or the kind of awareness that you are advocating, would make a difference? I mean, if everybody, can people talk to each other about these issues that you have raised? That's my question.
I found that like I'm on social media a lot, and I get into arguments, if you will, with people, and I try to deal with dissenters, with people who are on the other side of the fence, you know, uh, as humanely and as respectfully as I can. I never really cross the line and get vitriolic with them. Um, but I found that what has happened is, at least over this short term, I mean, if you know a little bit about fascism, and obviously you do, uh, you know that fascism operates on targeting a certain community and directing hate towards that community. Finding an enemy, because a democracy really is about finding friends, whereas the fascism is about finding an enemy and polarizing the community. And what has happened is that over the last few years, we've seen that happen very efficiently, targeting communities and spreading hate and spreading you know, also the advent of fake news. So today you may actually, uh, raise a certain fact uh, to fuel a conversation, and there is always a bit of fake news that can counter your facts, coming from another unknown quarter. So the battle's very tough at this point, and when I made this film, I still felt that the common man really didn't want any unrest and wanted peace, and wanted that the common man, like said earlier, that the common man loved his neighbor. But today, I am a little worried about this, because that film was born out of the belief and the idealism that I held, that every human being prefers peace over war. But today, somewhere I see a certain raging discontent, a certain anger, which has seems to have been fueled. And I think it's the same out there in the US as well. You're seeing hate language, the kind of which you'd never seen before. You know, and it's come out. A lot of the haters, a lot of the anger, a lot of the dissent has crawled out of the woodwork, and now it's brazen. It's in your face. So it's like that in India as well. And we've seen what's happened in England, and we know that there's a right-wing government in Australia. So it seems to be sort of a wave, a nationalistic wave, a jingoistic wave in most countries, and I don't know. I still, even today, I get messages from somewhere, some corner of the world every day, from someone who's watched the film. But I feel somewhere deep down that you know there is no point preaching to the converted. Or some people watch the film, they come back and they say, it really tugged at our heartstrings. But I would say it's sort of 50-50. You know, there are people who 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 think deeply after seeing the film. I would like to actually follow up with them and figure out if it's really changed their way of thinking.
Ah,
And
that's
that's very difficult to say, because so much of it is under the surface. The erudite watcher uh, does not really reveal his feelings so openly, or his conversion so openly. So today it's become so partisan. It's about which leader do you support, which ideology are you on the side of. So yeah, the jury for me is a bit out there right now.
Thank you. Yes.
my next question is for Dhruv. Dhruv, are you done with high school now this year?
Yeah, I just finished my 10th grade exams.
Oh, you just finished your 10th grade. Wonderful. Dhruv, how was it? How was it for you, one, working with your dad? Um, you know, how was that relationship? Was he more of a dad? Was he more of a director? And and then, did you really understand the enormity of your role in this film?
Yeah, so before I even knew about the film that it was being made. Obviously, like I used to be with my dad a lot, and he used to talk about all the issues that were going on in India, which
Okay.
have blown out of proportion way now. But like
Yeah.
back then, also used to talk about it and very passionately. And so I knew when he told me about the film and when he read the script to me, I knew like that this would have to be, I would have to give my all to this role to really like fully convey the message that he wanted to convey. And yeah, with I thought, like I was thinking about how our dynamic would be on set, because like he's a very fun loving dad, and like he's very funny, and he really just makes every boring thing fun, which is a huge, I thank God that I have a dad like this. But I was also thinking about how that would tie in with like an authoritarian role of a director on set, and how I would be the actor and he would be the director, and we wouldn't be like father and son completely.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful. Like the dynamic was such a perfect mix of both of them that my energy levels were up even when there were really, really long shoots with many, many takes. And he always, like with everything else, he always just kept it interesting for me. And I was like 12, and I mean, I'm still very, very young, but I was so much younger than I was so restless. But he really kept me focused, and yeah, so it was just wonderful working with him, and I would really love to do it again.
And did you
Also, we
take?
were surrounded by friends.
Yeah. So
Ah,
it was such a great like atmosphere being on set. It was just like having a gathering of my dad's friends, and which we did almost every weekend. So it was just, yeah. So it was just
so you
a
were very,
wonderful
very
experience.
comfortable.
Yeah.
You did a
Very comfortable.
fantastic job. It was
Thank
just
you.
absolutely super. And I wanted to ask Gaurav as well. Both Gaurav and Vasuki, your acting was just out, out of the realm. It was so amazing. Um, Gaurav, how did you really absorb this role of Imran? I mean, you looked the role, you played the role, you did such an amazing job with it.
Thank you so much, and hello everyone. For me, it all started rolling the moment Paddy gave me the narration of the script itself. So from the moment that I heard the script and the way it was written, I mean, it was pretty evident that I mean, it's not just any father and son story. It's a story that
Yeah.
which is being written with certain experiences in mind, certain ideology in mind, and because I knew Paddy and I had met Dhruva, offhandedly, so I kind of related with that, and I guess because my thought process is pretty much in the same line. I mean, Paddy's already spoken about it a lot. Uh, because my sensibilities were in the same direction, so that kind of helped. And then just watching Paddy and Dhruva, I mean, they share a very beautiful relationship, and so it was easy in a way because you always had that relationship, directly manifesting in front of you every day.
Was
And
there, was
uh,
there a scene that was really challenging for you, you think? Was there a scene when you thought, oh, wow, this is
yes,
going to
yeah, I thought the climax was was a pretty powerful scene, the way it was written, the way it comes in the story, and
be?
yeah, so I mean that was a pretty challenging scene. I mean, I'm not a father yet, so it was a little difficult for me to kind of imagine having a child and then losing your child in such a gruesome way for something that you don't really understand. You don't even have any ideological linkage towards also. So that was pretty difficult. I mean, that was a scene which was difficult.
Wow. I'm asking Vasuki the same question. What was the most difficult part of what you did in this film? What was the most difficult scene?
Firstly, thank you. Thank you for watching the film. And also, for this, for an opportunity to speak about it. To be very honest, when Paddy came up to me, I remember telling him that, are you sure you want me? Because I haven't acted before. This is probably the first time I'll ever be acting in my life. And he made it very easy, saying, just be yourself. So when, someone like you or, other people that have watched the film have said, that was brilliant. And I'm like, I don't think so, because I don't feel like I did anything at all. Because, and I think that's what Paddy wanted, just for me to be myself. So I didn't feel like I was acting at all. But yes, like Gaurav pointed out, it is difficult. The climax, I think, was a tough one.
Right.
Because firstly, both of us are not, neither of us is a parent. So I think the closest that I could bring to loss of a child was, I don't know if you noticed this little pup that I had right next to me. But I raised him, and so the closest I remember when Paddy asked, when we were about to do that scene, I think, I can't remember who it was, but someone asked me if I wanted some glycerine. And I said, no, just, sort of give me 5-10 minutes on my own.
Wow.
And I think the closest that I could come to with that kind of loss was, if not a human being, then, a pet that I've raised. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm his mother. So, So I think that was kind of tough. But once that emotion kicked in, it was just, it just flowed. So, yeah.
Oh, gosh. Your acting was indeed brilliant. It was very subtle and yet so powerful. I really, really, really enjoyed it. Amit, do you have some questions for Rehana?
No, just exactly the same question, Rihanna, because, when you take off that scarf in that party, I think you did a brilliant job there, but was there any scene that was challenging for you?
It was not really challenging because, these emotions we feel on a daily basis, and I needed to be very compassionate, and I feel that I'm in real life little compassionate. So it didn't really, what I was really scared of was, at that point of time, I was 24, and I was playing a mother of 12, 13-year-old girl. So I was really scared. What if, will catch me? For an actor, it's like you're cheating your audience. So I was very scared, but I would just look around. Paddy doesn't know it, but after every take, I was not looking at him to tell me that I acted well. I was just looking at him, is he getting convinced that I'm playing a mother? So, and that was one thing. Challenging, I wouldn't say it was challenging. In fact, it was a very easy breezy kind of a setup and role. I just needed to internalize this fact that I was a mother of a 12, 13-year-old. The day I did that, it was all fine then. Yeah. But thank you so much. I didn't thank you.
Thank you for being here with us. And a question for Acharya as well. I know I'm using your screen name, Rashmi, but
Anand Shastri. His screen name is Anand Shastri.
Thank you. Tell me about you and this particular role. What attracted you to this role? And you played it so smoothly, so well, and it was such a relatable role, because we always have with us, folks who are wise beyond their years, guiding us. And I kind of felt that when I saw you in the film as well.
Yeah, the best thing about the role that Paddy offered me was, I used to know Anand Patwardhan, who is actually, in a way, the role was about him. Somebody who was a filmmaker who had no support, no security, except his courage and his conviction. The way Anand, I have screened this film in my college, a film called Jai Bhim Comrade, and he walks in without any security. So he can be shot dead any moment. even
Oh,
today. Yeah. So I knew him. So I knew that this person had to very naturally talk about his conviction and about supporting the other filmmakers, younger filmmakers.
mhm.
So the best thing about the entire film, not only my role as Vasuki and all of us said, the best thing Paddy did was he found the right person for every role. So
Every role.
none of us had to act, including Dhruva. We all were being ourselves. And the best thing, according to me, about A Billion Color Story is that there is no technique. Fortunately, Paddy didn't learn filmmaking. So that was an advantage because he said a story like he wanted to say it. So he wasn't bothered about the technique of filmmaking. And that is, I think, the best thing about the film.
Yeah, and his cinematography too was so amazingly wonderful, and it came together so well. You're right. I think once you get into filmmaking or the study of filmmaking, I'm sure that confines you and restricts you. And this movie was sort of worked on with, if I might call it, wild abandon. Thank you, Mr. Menon. So we have a question from the audience from Nandita Sheth. Nandita, and go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, first I wanted to say thank you for such a stunningly beautiful experience. The movie was amazing. And my question is about your use of the black and white and the color. And can you talk about your decision for that symbolism and how you made it? I felt like this shock when it shifted to color that I wasn't expecting. And, you know, there are movies in the past that have that shift, like The Wizard of Oz and things like that, that use it in a different way. But I'd love to hear about
There were two reasons why I chose to shoot it in black and white. The first being that it is a story told from the point of view of a 12-year-old kid, and a kid's vision of the world is always uncolored. So, it was just a literal leap from there. So uncolored equals black and white. So it was pure. It was pure, and it was the story told from the point of view of a child. But what happens is, in the end, when the child gets shot, it's almost as if the innocence in the world is gone and the colors come back, and it's again muddled with all the shades that we see around us. So that was the primary reason I shot it in black and white. The other thing really comes from advertising. It's a film actually about color. So there's so many conversations about color, and I wanted the audience to actually imagine that. And so when you said that colors, it's a very Muslim color, I wanted the audience to imagine some color, and with the hope that they would actually immediately look back at their own prejudice, because we all have certain lenses and filters when we look at the world around us, and it's a world made of so many races, so many colors and communities, and that we end up profiling people even without having seen them. So this was actually a device that I wanted to use to get people to actually think about this. And a lot of people, did come back and say, "Oh my God, I didn't realize it was a black and white film until you spoke about color," and then, and said, "I imagined a certain color when you showed that scene." So in a way, I think that really worked. And these were primarily the two reasons that I used black and white.
Patty, I want to just interject something here. You just spoke about the tunic, the shirt that Dhruva changed and then wore. He had a short kurta which looked very Afghani, I thought, and then changed into a kurta with a round neck, which could either be Muslim or Hindu, though. And I wanted to ask you, what is a Muslim color? Because I made a note of that. It was a dark color shirt, so I knew it was not white. It had to be a dark color. And I kept thinking, oh, was it a bright pink? But then a bright pink is also very much a color we wear. So what color
Yeah.
did you really?
Yeah. So, well, out here in India, I mean, they're very, very clear. A certain shade of green is Musalman.
I see.
and
It's a green
yes,
shade.
so it's green, and I've heard people say, "Hey, no, don't paint that wall that Muslim green.
Okay.
Don't wear that shirt. It looks very Muslim." And I've always, it's always stunned me that people could be so brazen in saying this.
Point that out.
So I went ahead and put that in.
Even people my age.
Because growing up in Bangalore, I guess I didn't know what a Muslim color was. So I was
Where did you
trying to,
grow up? You grew up in Bangalore.
yeah.
Ah, yeah.
So I was
Even
curious
people
about.
my age, there are people that are like, yeah, don't wear that shade of green. It's a Muslim shade of green. You don't want to wear that to this event, and it's so colored, And these are some of my friends that say that, and then they look back on themselves and they're like, my God, I'm so like, I have such a deep rooted prejudice like this, and they look back on themselves like that, and they really reflect. And yeah, it's just ways that in like environments and ways in which people have been brought up, and like my generation is some of the most opposing opinions. It's like such a big spectrum, and
Really?
there are some people that are so like pro Modi, and some people that are so left wing, and it's like, yeah, it's almost scary.
It comes from it gets passed on from parents to their children, I think, and that's extremely unfair.
Dhruva, can I ask you, can you say 26 in Hindi?
Chabbis. I learned.
Please. Anita Balaji has a question for you. Anita, I think you're on. I'd like everyone to put their videos on so we can see all of you on the gallery screen. So if you don't mind, Rajan, Padma, Regina, and others, turn on your videos so we can see you.
Can I go?
Yeah, go.
Yeah, hi. Firstly, I want to say my son is called Dhruva as well. And he's 16. How old are you, Dhruva?
16.
Oh, okay. It's the same age, so that really struck me. I just had a question for the director. Did you know any real life couple that you based this life on, the story on?
No, not really. Not really.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I do know. There is a friend. I do have a close friend who's actually married to a Muslim. He's Hindu and she's Muslim.
Okay.
And I have a son and he's called Kabir. And
Okay.
yeah. I do know them. But but they come from a filmmaking family as well, so it's a little
Okay.
different. And,
Okay. Yeah, one of my very close friends, she's Hindu and married to a Muslim, and they have 3 children. And I mean, they've gone through a lot of ups and downs since Modi came to power. And every time we meet them in Delhi, they're scared that they'll be, a target of anything like this. So I just thought this rang so true.
Yeah.
And I really, really like the way you portrayed the problems these kind of couples face. And we should see that we should applaud them and say that they've taken the step. Instead, we put them in this spot where they're uncomfortable about the choices they made. So I think that was portrayed beautifully. That's what I wanted to say. And I really, really liked Dhruva's acting. I really liked it. Having a son of a similar age with the same name, I was like, yeah, it was stunning. Thanks a lot for this lovely movie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Lena has a question. Lena Gandhi, you have a
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, this is for Patty. So how many people do you think you've been able to reach with this film so far?
It's really difficult to put the math together. The year that we were doing the festival rounds, and what happens is also, every audience is every time it screens in a cinema hall, there are some 300, 400 people, and I think the largest audience I had was in LA at the Indian Film Festival of LA, and I think they had some 450 seats or something of that sort. So, that particular year, I was doing a little bit of math and, thinking of how many people would have watched this film and kind of thing. But then after that festival round, it got picked up by Star in India, Star Television. and they began to air it on one of their select channels. And uh, that actually, I have no clue how many people it would have reached, because almost every day, and they played it on television about 20 times, 25 times. And every time it played, I'd get messages from different parts of the country saying, we really felt.
Right.
And what really touched me was that people took the trouble to actually find out who this filmmaker is, and reached out and wanted to have a conversation with me. And I made it a point to reply to all of them and show Dhruva the messages as well. And then, I think around that year was when Dhruva taught me to get on Instagram. So, so people started reaching out on Instagram as well. But the thing is, I've never really been able to put a number to how many people might have seen it, because it never had a theatrical release, and then it made it to Netflix and Hotstar. So there's a huge number of people who have reached out, but I wouldn't be able to even hazard a number. And the other thing is also that I think someone's pirated it and put it on YouTube, and on YouTube alone, it's had a huge number of. You should see the comments.
Well, more the better, right? I think it's only impactful if it reaches the masses, because people like us watching it, we all have a prejudices, like you say, whether we accept it or not. But I think it obviously needs to impact the masses. And the second question quickly was, have you received any negative comments or backlash?
Well, only from one person, actually. There was obviously, I mean, on every piece of art there might be a little criticism. And somebody that felt it is a parable, like a fairy tale, this kind of thing can't happen. There are people who felt it was a bit too idealistic, of course.
I meant more politically, like from the Modi government type of people,
Well, no. But someone told me that they entered it. This film was entered for the national awards, but some of the in one of the earlier rounds, and a lot of people really felt that this would have won in the English film category. But someone told me that some of the higher ups decided it shouldn't be shown to the government authorities because it might have an adverse reaction from the BJP people. So we didn't make it that far. But just I've had one hate-filled comment so far, coming from a very rabid sort of right winger, saying calling me a Muslim sympathizer and a minority appeaser and that kind of thing, which of course then I just dismissed it because
of course
it didn't have any place in my.
Thank you. Well, it's I think keep it going as long as you can, and let's reach everyone we can. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. It was lovely. I have a question from Rajan Kamath.
Yes, this question is really addressed to all of you. First of all, it's a fantastic movie, and I think you all did a great job, as has been clear through this conversation. But the question is to all of you, and prejudice is universal. There's no question that it's evil when it's used for political purposes. There's no question that fascism and nationalism have a dark underbelly. But is it so universal because it's a very basic trait of the human being? Is it possible that way back in history, it was functional for humans to know who is an insider and who's an outsider? Because an outsider could possibly kill you. Is it possible that this classification system and this deep human trend to identify who's with me, who's against me, is something that we are just now intellectually and socially and culturally trying to wrestle with and trying to tame and trying to deal with, but it's in our genes? What do you think?
Well, that's absolutely true because in fact, Yuval Noah Harari and all of these, but they, Jared Diamond, they all argue this in their texts and in their books, and they talk about it, and they say that nationalism, the origins of nationalism came from a place that was actually good, because you could get a lot of people to cooperate and do things together when they felt a certain ownership of the place they belonged to, or a place that belonged to them. And religion also came up in the same way. It was sort of, every religion was basically a bunch of guidelines as to how to behave, and you tell the truth, and that's a basic tenet. And do not be greedy, do not pillage, do not rob, do not plunder. uh, all of these, they were all tenets that came up, hoping to organize humanity for good. Because nobody really came up with these concepts to create turmoil and disturbance. But but as a, over a period of time, a lot of these have been terribly interpreted, and the people who've interpreted it badly have done so for selfish reasons and for selfish purposes. So we are discovering uh, that all of these are inherent fallouts of organized ways of living. And it really, I think it boils down to who are the people we choose to follow, who are the people we choose to believe in, and what are the formats of living that we choose to adhere to, or take on as our own. So
yeah, but Patty, don't you think, I think in the last 2-3 years, I think countries like India, I mean the leaders, and even America, I think we're giving permission, to all the suppressed feelings, the suppressed prejudices to come out and just be whoever you want to be, and everybody needs to, stay in their own box.
Well,
we've all coexisted, but now we can't even coexist, and that's a sad situation. And I feel sorry for the Dhruv generation, and I'm surprised that his generation has those prejudices too. So we are doing a lousy job of raising our kids. There's not that many families that you portray. I mean, I am flabbergasted. We all look at the film and applaud the film, but what else are we doing? How are we raising our children? That's what this is about. Because if we don't raise our children to think, openly and be accepting and be tolerant, the world will keep on going backwards, in my opinion.
But Lena, that's exactly the point I'm making, that there is no question about rising above your focus on differences. There's only one way to deal with racism, and that's for each one of us to accept, I am racist. There is no way to deal with prejudice except for each one of us to accept we are prejudiced. There is no way to raise your children without prejudice, because prejudice is built into who we are. That's exactly the point I'm making.
Agreed, but we have to also teach them. It doesn't have to be that deep, and it shouldn't come out in anger and intolerance, right? Of others.
Yeah, I'm not supporting anger and intolerance, but all I'm saying is,
I know
the step one is to recognize who you are.
Can we hear from the actors also, please?
Yeah, let's hear from actors.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to hear from the younger generation too.
While I was hearing this, and when we were talking about the color, like how there's a certain specific green which is associated with a certain community, I think in the times that we are in right now, I mean, there's a certain discourse which is going on. Like the gentleman said, we all have our prejudices, and I mean, more ingrained. I think Dhruva also mentioned that it's his friends are taken aback by sometimes by the kind of words they end up speaking. So I think constantly to be able to question your own self on various things that are around us is, I think, most important, because अभी ये डिस्कोर्स चल रहा है जो कि एक हिंदू मुसलमान का डिस्कोर्स है, बट हमारे जहन में इतनी सारी चीजें हैं जो हम किसी कम्युनिटी के साथ एसोसिएट करते हैं. ये तो पैसे वाला है, ये पैसे वाला नहीं है. So these things that we have in our head, I mean, those are the things that continuously need to be questioned by our own self, is what I feel.
What about the other actors? Your opinions on it, Mr. Menon,
Yeah, can I talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to refer to a beautiful word that Paddy used in the film. He said India, he was talking about India because the whole film is set in the context of India. He said India is losing its poetry. So that poetry word is very critical to the film, I feel, because in primitivity, there is no poetry. Poetry has come out of refinement of the human civilization. It's a refined feeling. It's like art. So losing poetry means we are becoming primitive. And I want to talk about two philosophers, Indian philosophers, who talk about this entire thing. There is a philosopher called J. Krishnamurti, who says the moment you define yourself as a Hindu, as a male, as an Indian, you are becoming violent because you are creating divisions, and divisions lead to violence. The only way we can get out of it is to remove these artificial differences. There is another philosopher called Ramana Maharshi, and these are the only two philosophers I follow in India, Indian philosophers. Ramana Maharshi was asked once a very critical question by his disciple, "Sir, how do we deal with others?" His answer was, "There is no other." I want to end there.
That is wonderful. That's really insightful. Rashmi,
so I've been paying attention to a lot of things here. Okay, fine. I feel that it is not just about religion. There are so many, like you said, there are so many demarcations from the very beginning, and it's just so deep rooted. And so many times I wonder, because the kind of atmosphere that we live in on a day-to-day basis, we don't even realize. We don't talk about religion. We don't talk about who's Muslim, who's Hindu, in a country where our biggest of the superstars are Muslims, and we celebrate them. So it really makes me think, is it just a bunch of people who propagate the entire thing and everybody gets associated with it? Because I come from a Rajput family, who's a very conservative Rajput family. There I have never seen my parents talking about Muslims. I've never really seen it. So all of a sudden, it is just on your face. To an extent, I deleted my Facebook page, because whenever I would share something, people would just come on and say, you're supporting Muslims. You don't talk about Hindu. But the fact is, we've lost. The whole idea is to fight against extreme. And I feel that without being an extremist, we should be open to a lot of opinions and people. And the day we become little receptive and inclusiveness, we get that kind of a feeling that it's not our planet, we don't own it, it's not our country. The moment we feel that we are part of it and we have that inclusiveness, I think there won't be any problem. And if we talk about there is a solution, I don't know what is the solution. I really don't know. On an individual basis, we all have to realize it. In our homes, we have to behave a certain way. That ways, I think that is the only way to make a difference. Like seeing me, my family, my friends would react a certain way. So how do I conduct myself individually? I think if everybody takes responsibility of their people and themselves, things would be much better.
Oh, thank you for the opinion, both of you, Gaurav and Rehan. I keep saying Rehan, but Rashmi. Vasuki, would you like to add to it?
Yeah, would you actually repeat the question again? I mean, a lot of people have spoken and I've kind of lost track of what exactly the question was.
Rajan, do you want to repeat the question?
Sure. It was not really a question. It was more like a comment. The idea was that prejudice is universal. And because it is so universal and because it is so deep-rooted, perhaps it's an essential character of us as human beings. And that we are trying to socially and culturally come to terms with the fact that at some point in our history, it was functional to know who is with me and who's against me, who's an insider, who's an outsider. At some point in our history, our very survival was based
Depended on.
on our ability to distinguish between who's friend and who's enemy.
I agree. I actually think partly, what you said, prejudice is very innate to human beings, and our survival at some point did depend on it. And I think the problem arises when intolerance comes from blind faith. So I, for one, am not a religious person at all, any religion. I mean, when people ask me what I am, I always say my parents are Hindu, I'm not. So whatever that makes me. So I think the biggest problem that I have with any religion, for that matter, is the lack of debate in it. The lack of, questioning your basic religious tenets. And intolerance, I think, comes from the very fact that you don't even want to question the basics of your faith or of your belief. And prejudice is very, a very natural trait for us. But at the same time, even if you were prejudiced, I think intolerance is what makes life very difficult. It's and I don't think intolerance is. I think it can be worked around, quite frankly, in our own little spaces. But as Paddy said, given the current government, it's actually affected me on a personal level. This government in a funny way, because people that I'm close to who were never really religious earlier have now started very sort of underlying comments, some very sort of a passing statements like, yeah, but India is for the Hindus, and they say stuff like that, which is completely shocking to me. But I know that underlying prejudices have now sort of come to the surface. So that, I think, is very scary. I think when prejudice turns into intolerance is when it's scary. I don't think prejudice by itself can be done away with. Like you said, it's human. There's people we trust and there's people we don't trust. So I think intolerance, when it borderlines on intolerance and it becomes violent, verbally or physically or mentally, that's when it becomes a problem.
I think you put it so beautifully. Our inability to question our own religions.
This is a question from Pankaj Desai.
I think that's really important.
Yeah. It's for Paddy.
From Pankaj?
Yeah, it's from Pankaj Desai. I don't see him here, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it for him.
Okay.
Paddy, The Man in the High Castle is an alternate history.
Sangeeta is here.
You're here. Go ahead, ask your question.
Okay, so as Amitabh was saying, firstly, brilliant movie, loved it, and you all did a fantastic job. The discussion that we were having prior to this is a question that's, I think, even is greater than the movie. But to bring it back to the movie, one of the themes in the movie was the idea of a movie revisiting 1942 to 1947. And I'm sure a lot of you have watched The Man in the High Castle, which revisits history in a very negative way, but this idea was positive. And I was wondering, is that your next film, Paddy?
No, unfortunately, I haven't really given that any further thought. I think, but yes, of course, there is an idea there. What if we went back? But if I were to make a film with that thought, it would call for a larger scale, and I don't know whether I've really achieved that station in life as yet.
Well, I mean, how about crowdfunding it? Was the crowdfunding aspect of the movie something that actually happened?
No, it didn't. I was lucky. I'd made the film with my savings, and then luckily for me, Satish Kaushik, who did a cameo in the film, he came on board, and he said, let me come on board and let me become a co-producer, and then that sort of took it forward as well.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
Great job. We loved it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I want to wind it up now. I know it's 12 o'clock, and I promised everyone the session would be from 11 to 12. I can take one last comment, and we can wrap up. Anyone?
I'm just curious, how is everybody's lockdown going on?
Your question was from
everyone. Like, I don't know how do you.
Well, I think there's someone from Bombay here too. There's Padma from Bombay. She's for all of us, we are under lockdown. We're pretty much, it's opening up. The economy is opening up now. So some of us have decided we'll continue with the lockdown, and others are a bit more flexible. So it's a bit confusing.
I have a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Someone's, yeah. Did you all get that disturbance on the audio?
Yeah. Even I got it. Yeah.
Snooping on the conversation.
So Dhruva's telling me
I thought a song,
I was wondering, is it happening with me? So, I should just keep quiet.
No, I thought suddenly the Choli Ke Piche was going to play. I was like,
Oh, we have a question.
Bye.
We have a question, so
okay.
Go ahead. Who's? Please say your name and ask the question.
Mute Vikas's iPad. Vikas, mute your iPad.
Yeah, okay. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just mute it.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Could you just mute your audio, please? Yeah.
There's like a talk back.
Yeah, he's got his phone and his iPad together. That's what's causing it.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So my question is, there's a move towards fundamentalism within the Muslim movement. And so much of that is happening. Even in Singapore, I see so much of that going on. Now, is there a reaction to that going on? Is it not just Modi, or is there a reaction to the fundamentalism of the
Islam,
the movement?
Good question.
Well, Ganga, would you like to answer that?
I didn't hear the question. You're getting broken.
Okay, so there's so much movement, fundamentalism within the Muslim movement, and I see that in Singapore. I see that in my classmates in Singapore.
Can't still hear.
But the question I have is it a reaction to that fundamentalism, or is it just?
Are you able to listen, Eddie?
I can tell you what that question is.
I could hear that. I could hear.
Can you hear me?
Ganga, basically, he was asking if he was saying there is a move towards fundamentalism in Islam, and his question was, do you think that the rest of the world is reacting to the fundamentalism in Islam?
Everybody is becoming fundamentalist. Even the Israelis are becoming fundamentalist. So it's a kind of thing that is going on around the world. It's not to do with any particular religion. Every religion, even Christianity, is becoming fundamentalist in the context of your own Trump. So it's all over the world. It has to stop somewhere. And I don't think it is originating in Islam. It is simultaneously originating in every single goddamn religion in the world.
May I say something here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I don't necessarily, I'm not necessarily sure if Trump identifies himself as, a as a Christian even to begin with. So I think political fundamentalism is very different from religious fundamentalism. So everyone looking inward, and yes, a lot of world leaders at this point in time are looking very inward. A lot of them are becoming very nationalist. yes, but religious fundamentalism, I don't think I'd be too quick to think that is the case. I don't know if it's Christian fundamentalism as opposed to American nationalism. So if you're talking about world leaders that are looking inward, as opposed to more of a global outlook that sort of prevailed for the last 20 years, 25 years.
But to just add to something there, you were talking about Islamic fundamentalism. The fact here is that the BJP is affiliated to the RSS, which in turn was inspired by the Nazi movement. So if you look at there's a book by M.S. Golwalkar, who is one of the founding fathers of the RSS. And that book is called We or Our Nationhood Defined. And in that, what he preaches is Hindu fundamentalism. So Hindutva is Hindu fundamentalism. And this is not something that has just occurred over the last 6 years. It's been the RSS agenda for about 125 years. It's that old. So they have their roots in that kind of belief, and they've actually for those who don't know, Nathuram Godse, the man who assassinated Mahatma Gandhi, was from the RSS. And I've read this text. I've read the text of We or Our Nationhood Defined, and that is Hindu absolutism, Hindu fundamentalism, and that's been alive. That's been under the surface, and that's been sort of brewing for the better part of a century now. So it's not necessarily a reaction to Islamic fundamentalism, but there is, of course, like Ganga said, there is extremism in every religion, and unless people stop politicizing religion, we're probably not going to see an end to it anytime very soon.
Thank you. And on that note, I think we'll wind up this session. I want to thank Padmanabh for being here with us, for being so generous with his time, as well as Dhruv and Rashmi and Vasuki and Mr. Menon. Thank you, and Gaurav as well. I really appreciate you taking the time out to be with us. Please keep us in mind as you come across movies that touch your heart, and give us a ping and let us know, because we'd love to feature those films. This year we'll be featuring films online. So we'll have an online festival, and every week I feature a new film that we had considered for our movies, or for our film festival, or that we had shown at our film festival. So feel free to join in. It'll be the same Zoom ID, same time. Feel free to join in and see what we are showcasing each week. Thank you so much, you guys, and Dhruv, good luck with everything that you do.
Thank you.
I hope to see you in more movies.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So this was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was really good. Thank you. Good discussions.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Stay safe through this COVID season. And if you guys, if you guys need beer, we'll send you beer.
Thank you.
Yesterday, I was talking to the director of the New York Film Festival, and he was saying, just don't even go out. And he said, and Nadia brought me 2 bottles of beer, and it was the best beer I've had in like 3 months. So stay safe, guys.
You too. Bye.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
No,
Thank you to all the participants as well.
Stop.
Ahmed?
Ako?
I think you're still on, Mr. Menon. You just need to press the button that says leave. Ganga, there's a button at the lower right that says leave.
Yeah, and this the right.
Yeah.
Once. Okay.
Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.